All right, so get this, that YouTube video about remembering your dreams you sent me.
Uh-huh.
The one that's all about using like biblical principles to like
Yeah.
unlock the secrets of dream recall and all that. I gotta say, I was
Right.
I was a little skeptical at first. Like a spiritual download every night. Come on.
It does sound kind of out there at first, right?
Yeah, but the more I thought about it,
Hmm.
it got me thinking, what if there really is something we're missing when we just let those dreams fade away each morning?
It's a fascinating concept, isn't it? I mean, the idea that dreams hold deeper meaning, it's the common thread across so many different cultures and spiritual traditions.
For sure, but what I found intriguing about this video
Yeah.
is that it blends like spirituality with these practical techniques.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so unique.
Yeah, so the video starts off with this pretty bold claim that God gives us like these spiritual instructions and revelations when we're asleep, almost like
Oh,
a nightly download of wisdom.
yeah.
And they even use the story of King Nebuchadnezzar from the Bible.
Oh.
Remember, he had this super important dream, but couldn't remember it for the life of him.
Right.
And the video uses that story to show just how easily we can lose those important dream messages if we don't make a conscious effort to remember them.
It's a powerful metaphor, for sure. I mean, Nebuchadnezzar was desperate to recall that dream because he knew it held significant meaning for his kingdom and for his life.
And think about it. We might be having those Nebuchadnezzar moments every night, but we just don't realize it because the messages get lost in the chaos of daily life.
Exactly. It's like we hit the snooze button on those messages without even knowing it.
Okay, so then how do we stop those messages from slipping away?
Well, the video suggests cultivating stillness, specifically right when we wake up in those precious moments before the day really gets going.
So instead of hitting the snooze button or immediately grabbing our phones, we hit the pause button on our minds.
Exactly. It's about resisting that urge to jump right into our to-do list or check social media.
Give our minds a minute to breathe.
Exactly. And just try to reconnect with that feeling of having dreamed, almost like we're building a bridge back to that dream world.
And the video even suggests listening to worship music or just embracing silence to help deepen that stillness.
Right. It's about creating a receptive space, like quieting the mind to hear that still small voice of intuition or guidance, whatever you want to call it.
So it's not just about remembering our dreams, it's about creating space for those deeper truths to come through.
Precisely. It's about accessing a level of awareness that goes beyond our everyday thoughts and worries.
And you know what's interesting? The video goes even further. It suggests that stillness can also reveal insights and guidance for our daily lives, even if we don't specifically recall any dreams.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's calling them God-inspired thoughts. But even if we don't subscribe to that specific belief, couldn't we interpret that as simply tapping into our subconscious mind?
Yeah.
That wellspring of creativity and intuition that we all have within us?
Absolutely. It's like we're priming the pump for inspiration by taking a moment to be still.
Mm.
We create that mental and emotional space for those aha moments to bubble up.
And those moments can have real-world applications in our work,
Yeah.
our relationships, even just our overall decision-making.
It's about bringing that inner wisdom into our outer lives, making it a part of how we navigate the world.
Exactly. It's like we're integrating those different parts of ourselves, the spiritual or subconscious, with the conscious and practical.
And that integration, that's where the real magic happens.
But here's where it gets a little tricky. The video warns about distractions that can come up during those moments of stillness, like random thoughts or melodies popping into our heads.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well.
Right. It's like you're trying to be all zen and then suddenly you're hit with the chorus of that song you heard on the radio this morning.
And your moment of peace is gone.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And get this, the video actually encourages us to view those distractions as potential messages themselves.
Really? So like those random thoughts could be clues?
Yeah, requiring careful interpretation, of course.
Okay, so how do we tell the difference between mental chatter and those intuitive whispers the video is talking about?
Well, that's a great question, and honestly one that left me wondering if I'd be reading way too much into things.
I can see that.
Like, what if I wake up with a Taylor Swift song stuck in my head? Is that a sign from the universe or just a leftover earworm from the radio?
It's like, where do you draw the line?
Right, and that's where the video starts to get a little abstract, talking about things like communing with your heart and letting your spirit make diligent searches.
Yeah, those phrases can definitely sound a bit mystical.
I'll admit, when I first read that, I kind of rolled my eyes. Like,
Yeah.
communing with my heart sounds like something out of a Hallmark movie.
Haha, I get it. But maybe there's a more practical way to understand those concepts.
Yeah, like What if we break it down a bit?
Exactly. Like communing with your heart could simply mean tuning into your intuition, that gut feeling that often guides us, even when we don't have all the logical answers.
And diligent searches could
Yeah.
simply mean approaching this practice with intention and focus. It's not about just spacing out for a few minutes.
Right. It's about actively creating space for those insights to emerge.
So it's not about becoming a passive recipient of divine downloads.
It's about actively engaging with our inner world, becoming more attuned to those subtle whispers of insight that are always there, but often drowned out by the noise of everyday life.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a deeper level of self-awareness, listening to those inner nudges, and then learning to trust and act upon those insights in a way that feels aligned with our values and goals.
And that's a skill that takes practice, for sure.
Yeah. But imagine the possibilities if we could all tap into that inner wisdom more consistently.
It's like unlocking a whole new level of potential within ourselves.
Pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is, and it all starts with that simple act of stillness.
Right. And maybe that stillness is the key to unlocking not just our dream recall, but a whole new way of being in the world.
That's a beautiful thought, and one that I think we could all benefit from exploring further.
Absolutely. And speaking of exploring further, we'll be diving deeper into the practical side of this in part 2 of our deep dive. We'll talk about some specific techniques for cultivating stillness and deciphering those dream messages, whether they're divinely inspired or simply the whispers of our own subconscious minds.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. You know, one thing that really jumped out at me from the video was how it emphasized, like, how fleeting dreams are.
Yeah, like they disappear so
It
fast.
even compares them to something that flies away and can't be found, you know?
Oh, right. There's that quote from the Book of Job.
Exactly. It's like you wake up and, you had this incredible dream, but it's already slipping away.
Like trying to grab smoke.
Exactly. And the video really stresses, like, the importance of capturing those dreams ASAP.
Write them down.
Yeah, there's that quote about immediately writing down the dream.
It makes sense, though, right? It's like you're leaving yourself breadcrumbs to retrace your steps.
Exactly. You got to hold on to those threads before they disappear.
I've heard other dream experts say even just jotting down a keyword or two can be enough to unlock those memories later.
Like a little anchor to hold on to.
Exactly. But the video goes beyond just the act of recording the dream, right?
Yeah, it actually delves into this whole spiritual explanation for why we forget our dreams in the first place.
Okay, now we're getting into the interesting stuff.
Right, so the video claims that dreams don't actually originate in our brains, but in our spirits.
Whoa, hold on. So our dreams are like coming from somewhere else.
Yeah, it's like it uses this analogy of birth to illustrate the point. The flesh gives birth to the flesh, but the spirit gives birth to the spirit.
I don't know if I'm fully on board with the literal interpretation, but I get the idea.
What do you think about it?
Well, it makes me think that our dreams might be tapping into something beyond our everyday conscious awareness,
Like a realm that we don't normally have access to.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So maybe there's more to our minds than just the rational, logical part.
There could be this whole other level of wisdom and insight that we can access through our dreams.
Okay, I'm following you.
Yeah.
So if we follow that logic, then the key to remembering and understanding those dreams is to somehow bring our spirit or subconscious into alignment with our conscious mind.
Exactly. And the video suggests that stillness is like the bridge between those two worlds.
So by quieting our minds, we're creating space for those deeper truths to emerge.
Right. It's not just about dream recall, it's about cultivating a state of mindfulness that can benefit us in all areas of our lives.
I could definitely see the connection to mindfulness practices like meditation. When I can actually quiet my mind and be present in the moment, it's amazing what insights can come up.
It's like we're tuning into a different frequency, one that's always broadcasting, but we just can't hear it because of all the noise in our lives.
Okay, so let's talk about those practical implications for a second. The video claims that even if we don't remember specific dreams, cultivating stillness can still have a ripple effect throughout our day.
Right. It's like priming the pump for inspiration, like we were talking about earlier.
So how would that actually play out in real life?
Well, imagine you're faced with a tough decision at work. Instead of immediately reacting, you pause, take a few moments of stillness, and just tune into your intuition. You might find that a solution comes to you that you hadn't even considered before.
Or let's say you're about to have a difficult conversation with someone you care about. Taking a moment to center yourself before engaging could help you approach the situation with more compassion and understanding.
Exactly. It's about creating space between stimulus and response. Giving ourselves a chance to tap into a deeper well of wisdom that our rational minds might not immediately see.
It's like trusting that gut feeling that often knows the right path, even when we can't logically explain it.
Exactly. But what about those distractions the video talks about?
Oh yeah, the random thoughts and melodies.
Right, those things that pop up during our moments of stillness.
The video actually suggests that even those distractions could be messages in disguise.
I hadn't thought about it like that. So it's like we have to learn how to interpret them.
Yeah, it gets into this whole area of discernment.
So how do we know which thoughts are just mental chatter and which ones might actually hold deeper meaning?
That's a good question. It takes practice, I think.
Hmm.
It's about paying attention to those subtle shifts in our awareness. What feelings or sensations come up when we have certain thoughts? Do those thoughts align with our values? Do they feel expansive or constricting? So it's not about blindly following every random thought that pops into our heads.
Exactly. It's about using our critical thinking skills to evaluate those thoughts and see which ones are actually pointing us in the right direction.
It's about becoming more conscious creators of our own reality, recognizing that even the seemingly small choices we make can have a ripple effect.
It's about taking responsibility for our own inner world and how it shapes our outer experience.
This whole conversation reminds me of something we discussed earlier about the scientific perspective on dreams.
Oh, yeah.
While the video we're talking about leans heavily on a spiritual interpretation, there's also a ton of research on the psychological and even neurological functions of dreams.
Absolutely. Psychologists see dreams as a way for our subconscious to process emotions, memories, and even work through problems.
So even if we don't buy into the whole idea of divine downloads, there's still a lot we can gain from paying attention to our dreams.
Right, they're a window into our inner world.
So whether we approach it from a spiritual perspective or a psychological one, the key takeaway is that our dreams hold valuable information that can enrich our waking lives.
And cultivating stillness is one powerful way to tap into that hidden well of wisdom.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential benefits of stillness, the challenges of interpreting those subtle messages, and we've even touched on the scientific perspective. But how do we actually make this practice a part of our busy lives? That's what I'm really curious about.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one that we'll delve into in the next part of our deep dive. We'll explore some specific techniques and strategies for actually creating those pockets of stillness in our daily routines and putting these ideas into practice.
The video uses some pretty abstract language, like communing with your heart and letting your spirit make diligent searches.
Yeah, it can sound a little mystical.
I'm not gonna lie, when I read that, I kind of pictured myself sitting in a field of daisies waiting for a bolt of inspiration to hit me.
I get it. It can sound a bit out there, but I think we can ground those concepts a little bit.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, think about communing with your heart. What if we just reframe that as tuning into our intuition? That gut feeling we often ignore.
Okay, so instead of overthinking every little decision, we take a moment to just feel what feels right, what resonates with us on a deeper level.
Exactly. And diligent searches could simply mean approaching this practice with intention and focus. It's not just about spacing out for a few minutes.
Right, it's about actively creating space for insights to emerge. So we're not just passively waiting for a divine download, we're actively engaging with our inner world, becoming more aware of those subtle nudges and whispers of intuition.
Right, and the video actually mentions some tools that can help us do that, like focusing on a spiritual phrase or listening to worship music.
I can see how those could be helpful, like anchors for the mind.
Exactly, they can help quiet that mental chatter and create a more receptive state.
I've heard other mindfulness experts recommend similar things like using mantras or guided meditations or even just focusing on your breath.
Right, the key is to find what works for you, what helps you shift your attention inward and create that sense of inner stillness.
Okay, so let's say we've carved out some time. We're sitting quietly, maybe listening to some calming music. Now, how do we actually hear those messages, those insights the video claims are waiting for us?
It's about paying attention to those subtle shifts in your awareness. It could be a feeling, an image, a thought that pops into your head, even a physical sensation.
And if I remember correctly, the video specifically mentions paying attention to random thoughts or melodies that might feel like distractions at first.
Yes, because even those distractions can hold symbolic meaning.
So we have to learn how to decode them,
Exactly. It's like learning the language of the subconscious mind.
which often speaks in metaphors and symbols.
Right.
It's almost like dream interpretation. But instead of analyzing the symbols in our dreams, we're analyzing the symbols that come up during those moments of stillness.
Exactly. And the video actually suggests writing these things down even if they don't make sense at first.
So it's like capturing those fleeting insights before they disappear.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've gotten some tips on cultivating stillness and even deciphering those subtle messages. But the big question is, what do we do with those insights once we have them?
That's where discernment comes in. It's not enough to just have an insight. We need to evaluate it. Does it align with our values? Does it feel expansive and liberating? Or does it feel constricting and fear-based?
So it's not about blindly following every thought or feeling that pops up.
Right. We have to use our critical thinking skills to figure out which insights are truly aligned with our highest good.
It's about becoming more conscious creators of our own reality. Recognizing that even the seemingly small choices we make can have a big impact.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder, though, what if we're all receiving these whispers of wisdom and guidance, but most of us are just too busy or distracted to hear them?
That's a powerful thought. What if the potential for greater awareness, deeper connection, and more fulfilling lives is always available to us, just waiting to be unlocked?
And what if the key to unlocking that potential is as simple and as challenging as cultivating the habit of stillness?
It's an invitation to step out of the constant stream of information and stimulation, to pause, to listen, and to discover the wisdom that resides within.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired to incorporate a little more stillness into my life and see what happens. Who knows what insights and breakthroughs might be waiting just beneath the surface?
It's an exciting journey for sure.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been really fascinating exploring this topic with you.
The pleasure was all mine. And remember, the journey of self-discovery is an ongoing adventure. Enjoy the ride.